Hello, good morning, and welcome to Maritime Africa Live. Today, we'll be talking about environmental issues in African ports. And to discuss about this topic, I have Mr. Dr. Harry Barnes-Dabban. Hello, Harry.
Hello, Carlos.
How are you?
I'm good, Carlos. And you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. The weather is a little bit cold here at Accra. And what about here
Yeah.
at Dakar? What about Accra? How is the weather over there?
Yeah. Yeah. In Accra, also it's the Hamatan season, so it's a
Okay.
bit dry and cold, but yeah. But thank God,
Okay.
Africa is always warm. So even when school is still warm, but the
That's it.
Hamatan is a bit it makes the weather a bit hazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And can you introduce yourself to our dear viewers?
Thank you, Carlos. It's a pleasure having me. I am Harry Barnes-Dabban, as you already indicated. I am a Ghanaian. Um, I have a background in environmental policy and governance, but with specific focus on interactions between institutions and multiple actors that are connected to ports.
Okay.
Also, that work also across multiple levels of governance. If we say multiple levels of governance, we're talking about from the local level through the national level to the regional level to the international level. So how actors connected to the ports and institutions, port institutions and related ministries also work together in developing policies. And so, but also not only within the country, but also among multiple countries. Because my focus is on the regional one, I try to focus on how to regionalize environmental sustainability for African ports. That's
Okay.
my focus on. Yeah, so to getting African ports to work together to improve their environmental sustainability performance. And
I think the net he's facing some challenges with his network, but I guess he will be with us in some second. So before he comes back, I would like to tell you a little bit what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about as I said it. Okay, you're back.
yes,
Okay, so you were talking about your you were still presenting your introducing yourself.
yes. So that's my background. I actually worked for the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority for about 20 years, and I was the corporate environment manager. And
Okay.
but I still had interests in research because as I worked and then traveled around, I realized all the ports have common problems. But in those days, environment was not really on the agenda, but it had become an international issue, and ports could not ignore it. So I left Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority to go and study a PhD that looked at how environmental governance is improving or can be improved in African ports. So I did a research on that, and I studied five ports in 5 countries. So I studied the port of Tema in Ghana. I studied the
Yeah.
port of Lagos in Nigeria. I
Yeah.
studied the port of Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire. I
Yeah.
studied the port of Monrovia in Liberia, and then I studied the port of Douala in Dakar.
WACA.
So what I tried to do was to
Douala.
look at Douala.
You said
Yes, Douala in,
okay.
in Cameroon.
Cameroon.
Douala in Cameroon. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So I tried to look at these ports and then use them as, these were big ports around, but Liberia is not really big. But what I tried to do was to look at, Western Central Africa has different blocks, French and English. So I tried to do a mix of the two, and that's why I had Tema and Lagos for the English Anglophone ports. And then I did Douala and Cote d'Ivoire for the Francophone ports. And then I added Liberia, because Liberia it's also kind of has an American background. So then I tried to see comparatively what is different among these ports and also what is common amongst them and how they are reforming in their environmental progress. So that's what I did, and that's what I got into setting up PENAF, Port Environmental Network Africa.
Okay, so as you said it, you are the executive coordinator of Port Environment Network Africa, PENAF.
Yes.
So what are the activities of PENAF?
Okay. Thank you. It's a very interesting one. As I started my PhD research, of course, all along my work, my interest was in Africa, looking at a region. I mean, the world was going regional. There were regional blocks, and they were doing things together. And as I indicated earlier, I also realized that the ports in Africa also had similar problems, but environment was not really on the agenda. The agenda was basically economic. It's about traffic coming through the port. It's about the profits that they were making. But how they were impacting the environment was not really studied. So as I decided to go into the study, I set up Port Environmental Network Africa as an NGO to use it as a tool for my research so that I could have an empirical research that was action-based. So I could work directly with the ports, the different ports, in different ways to really get to understand what they do and why and how they do it. And so that's how PENAF was set up. So I set up PENAF as a tool to do my research, to collect my data, to do my analysis, to understand how environmental governance is being handled. And so what we started with was to then organize programs for the ports. So PENAF did the first African Ports Environmental Conference, and that was in the first African Ports Environment Conference. We had never been done.
When was it?
Conferences. That was in 2010.
Okay.
2010. It was held in Ghana. So we brought all the West and Central African ports together. We also had some ports coming from East and Southern Africa. Africa is divided into 3 maritime regions. We have the West and Central Africa as one region. We have the Eastern and Southern Africa as another region. And then we have the Northern Africa as another region. And the PENAF really chooses to focus on the sub-Saharan African part, which is West and Central Africa and the East and South Africa, but works more with the West and Central Africa. So we organized the first African Port Environment Conference in Tema in 2010, and it was huge. It was amazing. That is when you realize that the appetite was there for the ports to do something about environment. So we put them together, we discussed a number of topical issues, identified what were the problems, did an action plan, created awareness, and then got them to begin to start to engage on these issues. We went ahead to do the second. Sorry.
Go on. No.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then we went ahead, with the success of the conference, Eastern and Southern Africa then also asked, could you also do it for us as well? Because we have the same challenges. So in the 2010 September, we then went to Eastern and Southern Africa and then did the second African Ports Environment Conference in Mombasa. So there also we got the different ports to work together to identify their issues and begin to give considerations to integrating environment into what they do. And then I went back. So after, in the subsequent years, what PENAF tried to do was to then help them build capacity to understand what they do. So give them exposure also to international practices. So we also started organizing international port environmental sustainability study visits. So we organize the ports in West and Central Africa, in East and Southern Africa, and then bring them over to Europe in some ports. We did the first one to the port of Bremen in Germany. So in that conference, we focused on MAPO, so on providing port reception facilities. So how the Germans did it, how Bremen was implementing it, how they were working with different actors. So the participants really learned on that one. I think that was in 2012. And then we did another one in 2017 to the port of Antwerp and then the port of Rotterdam. And then we followed it up with another one in 2019 that also took us to the port of Amsterdam, the port of Rotterdam again, the port of Antwerp. So in all these visits, we create opportunities for the ports to sit together, to talk, and then to compare, to analyze things, see what best practices are there, how they can really address it, and learn and come back home and see what they can do. In between also, what we did was to also work with UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, with the Abidjan Convention Secretariat, where there are these regional seas conventions. And for our region, running from Mauritania down to Southern Africa, we have the Abidjan Convention. So we worked with the Abidjan Convention Secretariat also in 2015, and then we organized the first strategic assessment of port environmental policies and programs. And that was also very interesting. So it's by this way we're trying to get the ports to begin to take environment serious. And it's interesting that if we look at where we started in 2010, at that time, the ports looked at environment or defined environment as waste in the port or making the port clean. So it was basically about sanitation and the beauty of the port. That's how they looked at environment. But along the line, it has been understood that it goes beyond that to cover the impacts that comes from the activities of the ports. So the impact of port operations, the impact of industries in the ports on neighboring society, communities that are around, on the air, on water, on the soil around the port, on ecosystems around the port. So you get to know that this awareness is really coming live. And now we have, all the ports now have environment offices established. Each one has environment department, and they have professionals who are handling this. The ports in, particularly for West and Central Africa as of now. My focus today will really be on ports in West and Central Africa. So they all have environment offices dedicated to addressing environmental issues, and they have professionals who are handling these offices, which tells you that they acknowledge the need to deal with the environmental issues.
Yeah, we can see that PENAF has done a lot when talking about environmental issues in African ports. Now, tell me, what are the biggest problems that African ports are facing when talking of environmental issues?
I think that the issues are many and they are varied. And I had to add to it that PENAF doesn't work on its own, no. PENAF works with existing institutions already. So the ports have their own associations. So whatever we do it in collaboration with the regional associations. So for West and Central Africa, for example, where we are particularly focused currently, we work with the Ports Management Association for West and Central Africa, which is based in Lagos. So they are partners, and we don't just walk into any port. No, it doesn't work that way. We use the existing structures that the ports themselves have, and we work with them. And it makes it easier and better because we get the same strategy with the port associations, we get the same understanding, and then we move together. And then when they are in the seat, then they are able to reach all the ports at once. So that's what facilitates our ports. And in working with these ports and the port association, these wells, we have come across that the port have several environmental aspects. But I think what I would mention as key are the issues of oil spills. Oil spills in the port.
Okay.
Oil spill. Yes. I mean,
oil spill from what?
From ships. Oil spills from ships. So ships that come in to discharge oil. Sometimes there are leakages, or sometimes there's an accident in the port, and then the oil in the tankers spill onto the water. And these need to be responded to quickly, and then the oil is mopped up because it can be toxic to the water and the marine ecosystem. So
Well,
oil spills, it does.
I can say that it's really a big problem because I've been to some ports and I've really seen some oil, and I can say that it's not good. It's not very good for the environment.
Exactly, it's not at all. So it's one big issue that the ports face, and they need to build adequate capacity in their oil spill response issues. And another major issue also to ships' waste. So the ships that are calling in the ports, the waste that they carry, discharging these wastes. I mean, all these issues come under international conventions, like the oil spills, for example, come under the OPRC convention. They're all International Maritime Organization conventions. And then the ships waste also comes under the MAPO convention. So it obliges ports to have facilities so that when ships call in the port, the waste that they have generated on their journey will be discharged into these facilities in the port. The whole idea is to prevent the ships from dumping their waste in the ocean as they travel. Because if they do that, then the ocean gets polluted. The ocean and the navigable waterways become polluted, and then there's impacts on the ocean. So ports are obliged to provide reception facilities. And that is also a big challenge. It is not, most of the ports are doing something in a way, but they are not adequate to meet the needs that they're expected to address. And then also, it should be done in a comprehensive way that it's traceable. I mean, the disposal of these waste, even when they are being collected, should be able to disposed in an environmentally accepted way. But we don't see this happening most of the ports. But a lot of the ports are doing well. I mean, and different ports also do it differently. Maybe we can come to that when we get to other issues. But there are differences in ways that ports do them, how they receive them, and how they even charge, and how they make it work. That becomes a challenge. For example, if you look at ports like the ports in Ghana, for example, and the ports in Lagos, Nigeria, there are more ports in Nigeria. So, for example, they have an arrangement where they have good facilities. They have private operators providing these facilities because the port does not necessarily need to invest monies in these things themselves. They can get into public-private partnerships. And then the private operators who have the technology, who have the funds, the resources, the knowledge, can handle these waste in a more efficient way. For countries like this, they have operators that are registered, and then they monitor them, and they do it in a way that ships have to pay. Now, to prevent ships from not discharging, it's a compulsory user facility. So when you enter the port, whether you use the facility or not, you have to pay.
Okay, I see.
Exactly. That's it. Whether you use it or not, you have to pay. The whole idea is that if you allow the ships to choose to discharge or not, then they will not put in, because who wants to spend money? If I can dump, why do I want to spend money on it? But if it's a compulsory pay approach, and then the ships cannot avoid it, then if I am paying, I better discharge. But on the other hand, if you get to other ports like Abidjan and like Douala, for example, the ships pay only for the waste that they discharge. And so who is then monitoring to ensure that every waste on board has been discharged in the port, for example? The ports will the ships declare what they want, and then they discharge what they want. So these are things that we may have to look at and then harmonize and see. And then so what I even saw was that when ships discharge garbage, ships under the MAPO Convention has 6 annexes or 6 parts. It deals with different types of waste that are generated as the ship goes. So the first Annex 1 deals with oil substances, oily waste. Because as the ships are traveling in the engine rooms, waste oil comes up, and in all other areas, bilge waters and other things are collected. So they become waste oil, and then it has to be properly set. So Annex 1 of MAPO takes care of that. The Annex 2 takes care of but in liquid form. Annex 3 looks at the same chemical substances but in packaged form. And then Annex 4 looks at sewage, so the sewage that ships generate. And then Annex 5 looks at waste, so the garbage that is generated on board. And then recently there's another one that has been added onto it, Annex 6, that has to do with emission of emission into the air from ships. So that is quite new for Africa, so we don't really go there. But most of the ports, at least, are working on Annex 1 and Annex 5.
Okay, so Dr. Barnes. Yeah. Can we say that the biggest problem are oil spills and ship waste?
There is also the issue of ballast water discharge. You see, Africa, our ports are all basically, our countries are basically exporting bulk products.
Okay.
So manganese, timber, cocoa, iron ore, bauxite, these are all bulk products. And now for ships to come and take these bulk products, ships all carry in their holds, which they call ballast. The whole idea is that it's balances the structural integrity of the ship. It makes the ship balanced and stable on sea. So when it is empty, it has this ballast water to support it. When it takes in load, this ballast water has to be discharged. Now the issue is that ships are coming from different continents with different temperatures, with their water having different organisms. So some organisms are used to a certain area, but when you introduce them into another area, they become invasive and they can destroy the organisms in the new area where they have come. So there is the Ballast Water Management Regulation from IMO that indicates how ballast water should be treated.
Okay.
And then, so it's...
And apart from ballast water,
we also have issues of air quality. So from the ships that come to the port, and then when they are at berth, the air that they emit from the engines into the air. Also, industry around the port themselves, also the cement factories, the food industries, also what they emit into the air. So air quality is a big problem. And then also port waste management. So waste that is also generated in the port area itself. So apart from ships, waste that is generated from ships, waste that are also generated in the port area itself is also another issue that has to be dealt with. We also have the issues of also traffic congestion. Ports are busy areas. Cargoes are coming in, cargoes are coming. So lots of trucks are coming in, and sometimes they really congest the port areas. It's a big issue. And also in most of these trucks also don't have well-adjusted engines, for example, so they also emit a lot of soot and emission from their engines. So traffic congestion is there, and also sometimes dredging and then disposal of dredged material. The ships, the ports are always dredging to keep what we call to keep with the whole that will be able to take bigger ships as they go along, as the ships call in. Now, depend upon activities that is in these areas. In these areas, you can have different organisms or different pollutants got into the base of the port waters. When these are dredged and then they are disposed properly, to dredging and disposal of it, you have to maintain their drafts. Yeah, we have to be careful so everybody understands. So, and then so that's another issue. And then that also brings us the issue of water quality. So the water in the port basin itself, where the ships are coming in, if ballast water is being discharged there, if dredged material and other things, other pollutants are getting in there, then of course the water quality is also compromised. It has to be checked. And then also there is the issue of shipwrecks. Most of our ports also have old ships that have been tied in there and they are sitting there, they are rusted, and they get lots of problems. They take space, they take commercial space, and there's a problem also with all kinds of illegal activities in there. Also, some issues have to do with coastal erosion. As the ports are now expanding and redeveloping, they are affecting erosion also in the coastal areas. Also, one thing I also see is also the problem of waste inspections and how to handle them in the ports. You can see that we all rely on a lot of home second-hand electronic equipment that comes from Europe, from the Americas, from elsewhere. And sometimes some of these items are coming are really waste and they are dumped here. But the ports don't have really the capacity and the ability to do proper inspections to detect what is waste and what is not. And also in between, hazardous waste also comes in to be dumped. Not too long ago, we know the story of Abidjan from the Probo Kuala, where they dumped chemical toxic waste, and then the problem that came with the deaths and others. So these are some of the major ones that I could highlight within this space, but they are separate. But so these are the environmental aspects.
Aspects, okay.
Of problems, aspects, yes.
So we can
talk about institutional aspects.
Yeah, I can see. I didn't know that African ports were having so much environmental problems. So I'm a little bit shocked. I can say that I'm a little bit shocked because I didn't think that we were having so much problems. So actually, our ports finding solution to those problems. You were saying some minutes ago that some of them were trying to find solution, or some of them have found solutions. So, for example, when we talk about oil spills from ships, okay, African ports trying to find solution, or are there some solutions that have been used already?
Yes. Some ports have actually started working on some of their problems. So maybe of more interest to me is that of providing of reception facilities, as I said earlier on, is a problem in the ports. But even though in some areas it might not be the best, but there is something in place that can be improved upon to make it adequate. But some are also doing very well. If you look at African Circle in Nigeria, for example, it's a huge facility, very professional and very competent, and they are really dealing with all kinds of waste that comes to the port. So you can be sure that, and the regulation they have around it doesn't allow ships calling in the ports in Nigeria to have the incentive of dumping their waste anywhere. Necessarily, they are made to discharge what they have to discharge. If you also come to Ghana, I think Ghana's story was quite interesting, or it is quite interesting, and it's a good lesson for all of us. Normally, it comes under the International Maritime Organization's MAPO Convention. So that is the Convention for the Prevention of Pollution of Ships. Okay. Pollution by ships, yes. And normally what happens is that these international conventions the countries will first have to adapt them into a national legislation, and then it gets implemented. What Ghana did, I think it was in 2004, 2005, was so interesting. At the time, Ghana didn't even have any national regulation on MAPO. Even though they had signed the convention, there was no national legislation. But the Port Authority on its own identified itself with the international practices and said, we are not going to wait for any national legislation, but we are going ahead to establish a port reception facility. Even if there's no
that's good.
That's it. So for me, it's one of the best practices that we have to share with other ports, because our ports have now become more autonomous than they used to be. They are all state-owned ports. Yes, we agree, but they have all increased private sector participation, especially with the port operators. And so they have now more autonomy to take decisions on their own and then work, especially when it falls within international conventions, and become more efficient in what they do. So that, for example, tells you that the ports are really willing and they want to do something, and they are doing something about it. Also, with the ballast water.
Yeah.
Sorry, come in.
No, go.
Also, with the ballast water, the same thing happened. Ghana did its bio surveys when there was no national regulation on the Ballast Water Management Convention. It took the lead that, yes, we need to start monitoring our water quality. So they did the baseline studies, and then they have to just continue monitoring. I'm not too sure what is the situation now, but we are looking at taking action, acknowledging that there's a problem, and then taking action. Okay. If Nigeria also did the same, they were the first to even turn it into a national legislation, and they ensured that they did their biota studies and then and got measures in place to ensure that the water quality is monitored. And so these are the things. And also the ports have also adopted. They acknowledge that they are having problems, so they have adopted environmental management systems. Some of them, almost all of them now, are ISO certified.
Okay.
So, yes.
I can see that when you are giving examples, you talk about Anglophone, let's say, like English-speaking countries. But is it because French-speaking countries are not doing what they have to do?
No, French-speaking countries are doing their best. They are also doing their best. I mean, if you pick,
but if the best is not enough, they have to do more.
Exactly, but they are starting. That if we look at environmental management, the starting, Abidjan was the first port. Okay. Abidjan adopted environmental taxes before all the other ports did. At that time, the ports were afraid that if they imposed environmental taxes, maybe they would lose trade. Ships will not call anymore because they would think that their ports are expensive, and therefore they would divert to other ports. But that was never the case. Ships still called because, if you have businesses that care for the environment, they are happy that you have regulations in place to prevent environmental degradation, and therefore they would even use your port. So Abidjan was the first to start implementing environmental taxes, for example.
Are all the ports, have they all have environmental taxes now?
Some of them are having in different forms. So like the case I gave for you for Ghana and Nigeria, for example, it's compulsory, so you have to pay. If you go to Douala, for example, it's not compulsory. You only pay for what you discharge. And even then, it is still nuanced. Ships that discharge garbage, so the Annex 5 of MAPO Convention garbage, when they discharge to the operators, port reception facility operators, they pay the port reception facility operators for discharging that waste for them. But when they discharge oil, the companies receiving the oil rather have to pay the ships.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they think they see oil as a result. But we have to then also discuss and see, is that what the spirit of MAPO is looking for? So these are some of the issues that we have to begin to look at and then have a common approach to see which is good and yes. So there are different practices, there are different types of practices, different ways of doing it in different ports. Yes.
Okay. Apart from the waste, when it comes to air quality, are there some solutions that are being used in African ports?
Yeah, thank you. Air quality is one big problem for the ports in Africa. They all know it, and what has to be done is they have to start monitoring in different stations. Some ports have some monitoring stations to some extent that they can monitor because the port area is wide and there are different activities in different areas. So you choose monitoring stations, and then you can also choose what kind of indexes of what you want to look at. Do you want to look at particulate matter? Do you want to look at sulfur dioxide, sulfur oxide, or do you want to look at ozone substances, for example? It depends on what the port can afford to do. So it's a little bit complicated and difficult, but some ports have in certain areas monitoring equipment that monitors their air quality, but it is not it's not been fully taken up. But it's coming now because there is an ongoing project that is supported by the World Bank. We call it the Sustainable Port Partnership. So it's a partnership between the World Bank and the Port Management Association for West and Central Africa. The objective of that project is to help ports reduce the negative impacts from the operational activities and then enhance the positive ones. So, and especially how it affects the neighboring communities, so the fishing communities and other businesses and other aspects. And then, so it's ongoing. In fact, PENAF is the one facilitating it. And the process has been to help the ports themselves to have an innovative governance arrangement where they make decisions for themselves. From this project, what happened was that the ports met. They identified, in fact, before the project started, we had identified 15 issues. But the ports cannot address all these 15 issues. It's not possible. So they have to prioritize which ones are important. So under the World Bank's Sustainable Ports Project, the ports then looked at these 15 issues and then they picked 4 of them as priority areas that they want to start working together voluntarily on these 4 areas. So they picked air quality, they picked waste management, they picked energy efficiency, and they picked coastal erosion. So as I speak to you now, these 4 issues have become priority for West and Central African ports, and they are working on how they can set performance indicators and set actions and activities to concretely address these issues. And it's interesting how it is going. And so it's really gotten these ports to sit up and work on these and then call it their own.
And
that's it. Yeah.
So I can see that from what you said, that ports are mainly, we can say that they are mainly concentrating themselves on different types of waste. But when talking of the other type of problems, they are still looking for the way they can deal with it. But what I would like to know, are ports, African ports, really interested in finding solutions to environmental issues, or they are just trying to show that, oh, we care about environmental issues, but there is no will to really address those problems?
That's a very interesting question.
I can see that it's if you answer these questions, they are partners. They can tell you after something that they have to.
But Carlos, it's good you ask this question because we also have to let the world know that African ports are taking their destiny into their own hands. They are really willing That's what I was telling you. They are really willing to find solutions.
I hope it's not because they are just your partners that are.
Not at all, not at all. Now, let me give you one particular thing that shows.
Yeah.
Now, under this sustainable ports partnership, for example, the ports working together have developed their own environmental sustainability charter.
Oh, that's good.
Exactly. So that now forms the basis to implement the solutions that they want. Because so for them to commit themselves to a charter, and this is voluntary, for them to commit themselves to a charter, it tells you that they know there's a problem and they want to address it. The issue is that they cannot do all of them at the same time. So they agree, we will start on 4 and then we add on as other things come. But they are very, very willing. And their management association is strongly, that's the Port Management Association for West and Central Africa, is strongly coordinating this and working together with them to achieve something, because it's in the interest of the ports themselves. If they get their ports to be clean, economically they profit. They're also able to profit from international fund financing for the projects they want. They're also able to attract top investors into the ports. They're able to reduce their risks that would make them lose money. It also helps them even in reducing their insurance premiums. So there are so many benefits that makes them want to do it, and they're committed to doing it. They are committed, they want to do it. It's not easy, it's not simple, but we acknowledge that it's a process, and that's what we all agree. It's a process, but we start from somewhere. But getting that commitment in a charter, in fact, the charter was approved just last November at the council meeting, which was held in Douala.
Okay.
That's when they approved it, and they are ready to roll and then move on to it. And it's so they are committed, but it's a process. That's what I would want to say.
Okay, it's good to know it, but
yes,
practically, I can see that PNAF is always working with ports to find solution for those problems. And have you identified some how should I say it, some solution from other parts of the world that can be copied, let's say like that, copy here in Africa?
Yes, okay, thank you. It's yeah, so copy it, but I would rather say adapted, because sometimes exactly adapted. Sometimes how it is done elsewhere might not necessarily be the same way.
Exactly.
So, as part of this sustainable port project I'm talking about with you, one of the objectives is to get concrete projects in the areas of which of the 4 areas that they are tackling. Even before that, if you get to some of the ports, for example, in the area of energy efficiency, they have already started installing solar panels, for example. So they're getting into energy mix. So it is reducing their dependence on fossil fuels and then on whatever source of energy that the country has. So they are going into renewables, have solar panels on some of their roofs, the roofs of some of their buildings, and then beginning to monitor. Some of them have rules now on when they have to buy electronic equipment, for example. You want to buy energy-saving products. So in those kind of ways. But as part of the Sustainable Ports project, there's an investment component that would help the ports, when they have identified which projects they want, to connect them with the best practices around the world. How other ports are dealing with waste, for example. How other ports are dealing with coastal erosion, for example. How other ports are dealing with the issue of air quality. So all these things are there. Now with PENA, for example, what we are doing is we are also creating a collaboration between the Port Management Association of West and Central Africa and the European Association for Handling of Ship Waste. So in this kind of international partnership, our ports are able to pick the lessons from how European ports are handling waste from ships. We have had a couple of meetings, and the European side that has the best practices are willing to help and see what they can do. Also within the ports themselves, the ports that have established within the West Africa ports themselves, the ports that have established reception facilities are also ready to go and replicate what they have done in different ports, in other ports that need these facilities. So this has been established. We've also, one of the problems we see that they have is also the issue of stakeholder management. It's not really working, but you cannot address environmental issues in the port area without involving stakeholders, because the port authority it's a regulator, but also only one actor. The port is made up of individual private organizations, and also they are sited in communities. So their activities impact on these communities. So there should be this dialogue that's institutionalized among the ports on how they can deal with the actors. Because if the port alone does it, how can they address the issues of the community if they don't sit with the community to know how they are being impacted upon from the air quality and from the dust that is coming over there, or from polluted water is being discharged and running through their communities. So stakeholder management. In that case, for example, we connected them with the Port of Amsterdam. They had already done a project in San Pedro, for example, so they shared this practice, and ports that are willing to institutionalize these practices are going to work hand in hand with them. And then also in Kenya, in the IMO, this maritime technical training center in Kenya, that has also piloted issues on energy efficiency and air quality. They have the practice, they have the experience, so they share these practices also with the other ports that have not been able to find solutions to the problems that they are facing. So we are connecting them with all these different international partnerships and getting them to also institutionalize their arrangements. I remember we did some work in Liberia. That was in 2014. It was when they were introducing environment into the port. And what we did was to get them to...
I think we lost once again Dr. Barnes, and I hope he will get back to us very quickly. So those who are following us, if you have any question, you can ask it in the comments. I think Dr. Barnes is having some network problems, and he will get back to us very quickly. So to sum up a little bit, I can say that we talked about the different problem, the biggest problem that African ports are facing when talking of environmental issues. And we can see that those biggest problems are oil spills from ships, waste from ships, ballast water, poor waste management, air quality, traffic congestion, water quality in port, old ship in port, coastal erosion, and waste inspection. And after that, we see that some of the ports are already finding solution to those problems, and especially the English-speaking countries. He gave the examples of Nigeria and Ghana. Those countries are doing well when talking of waste management. Apart from that, we talked about the fact that I asked him if African ports were really willing to find solutions to environmental issues, and he told me that that they are really committed to solving environmental problem in their port, because it helps them to improve their business in different ways and get funds from international institutions. And apart from that, we're talking about solutions that are being used in other ports in around the world that can be adapted in Africa. And he talked about the fact that PNAF, Port Environmental Network African, is helping them. I think we have him back here.
This network.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but we can these are things. So they're happening, yes. The ports they've started, and this sustainable port partnership, trust me, by the end of the year, should be able to really move the place forward. And then
Okay. We got a question from Duji Ocean. He or she says, question from Dotcan Africa. Is there a training program in place for port operators to train their staff? Oh, that's a good question.
Yes. Yes, there is. In fact, the Port Management Association for West and Central Africa itself has a training center in Cotonou.
Okay.
Yes, it has a training center in Cotonou, and it trains all shades of staff, all kinds of staff in whatever area that they want. PENAF also has a collaborative arrangement with the transport maritime transport college in Netherlands that also organizes such trainings as well. It is done within the local context. So if you have to come down to your port, they do it in that way. If your port has to go to their training center, it is also done in that way. So they are training programs. So you can always contact me, and then we can see. But the MOCA, the Port Organization, has a training center. So yes.
Thank you very much, Scan Africa, for your question. And now, while working with African ports, are there some problems that you face?
I think you would agree with me that every endeavor has problems, and if problems stop, then we'll not have any jobs to do. So we need problems to. If problems stop, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we cannot hear you very well. Can you go again?
So what I'm saying is that
it's because of the network.
In every endeavor, in every endeavor there are problems.
Yeah.
So if problems cease, or if problems stop, then we will not have any jobs to do. Because it is problems that makes us look for solutions. So there are always problems. Yeah, there are always problems. And
I'm talking of while dealing with them in the collaboration. Okay, within PNAP and African ports, are there some problems that are not solved, or are there some problems?
I would say whatever there are, they are basically institutional.
Okay.
Problems are basically institutional. So it has to do with sometimes the bureaucracies and international arrangements for the different ports. And these are things that you, the outsider, cannot do anything about. You only have to manage and then know how to address it. I mean, for some ports, for example, some ports have a greater autonomy to do their own things than other ports. And here also I go again. the background of us in South Africa is really unique. So I still go back to the Anglophone, Francophone thing. If you look at the Anglophone parts, naturally their systems are more co-management approach. They are more flexible. So the port authorities can take more decisions and do their own things.
This is in every area.
Yes, in this, but then if you get to the Francophone ones, the bureaucratic layers are so much. You have to go through several layers. So, for example, we have a meeting, we agree on something, and then we come back. You can see that the Anglophone ones are able to move ahead with it, but then the Francophone ones have to wait for some approval in certain ways. It depends on the issue anyway. That is also changing. It's just basically the kind of background that we have from our colonial legacies. So it has affected our ways of doing things. But I think, the ports are beginning to realize that they have more autonomy and have more power, so they can do things in a way not to let the state know, but in a way that can really support them. That's the PANF approach, is to help the ports to build their own agency outside of the state, but also with the state, but take their own things into their hands. So bureaucratic institutional arrangements is sometimes a problem. Then sometimes the enforcement of regulatory, legal and regulatory frameworks, how to enforce them. So you come up with all these rules, you come up with all these decisions that you want to, but how to enforce them? It's a problem. So enforcement is one problem we find. And then also sometimes the human capital, the human capacity, and the level of ability to work is also sometimes a problem. Or they keep changing them. You get one person in your meeting over a certain period, and then the next time it changes, another person comes in. So it stalls the progress you have made. You then have to go back again. But so what we have done is that we have made the port, together with the Port Association, we have made each port identify an environmental focal point. And we're trying to get them to validate them as the ones that will present them every time. In that, we can get continuity. So these are some of the challenges that we face sometimes.
Okay. So now,
for now, we can just talk about these. Yes.
Okay, we are running out of time. And my last question is: if you were a schoolmaster and you have to elect the 3 best students when talking of environmental issues.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear. Could you kindly come up again, please?
If you were a student master, if you were a master, like and you have to elect your 3 best students, student being the African part. Your 3 best students. I want the 3 best students when talking of environmental issue. You start from the third one.
I think
You start from the third one to the first one.
I think that's a good question. That's a good question, but I would rather not answer it directly. What I would want to say is that there is, because different ports do different things. So if I want to pick 3, I should be able to justify why the 3. So it's a bit difficult. But under this project I'm talking about, under the Sustainable Port Partnership, we are trying to develop benchmarks. So when the benchmarks are there, that it means we place all the ports on a level platform. And then from the performance out of the indicators that we have given them, we can be able to confidently say that these are the best 3. But at this stage, it's difficult to say these are the best 3 because yes.
Let's talk. Let's talk only about
they're all doing their best.
Let's
all doing their best. So.
Okay, let's talk about waste management, all type of waste. Which port is best managing its waste? Which port has the
Okay, so
best system of waste management?
within West and Central Africa, of
Yeah.
course, so the waste streams here are two. Okay, we have the
Okay.
ship-generated waste, and then we have the port area waste.
Port waste, yeah.
So these are two. So the waste management for port comes under these two categories.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about ship waste, I would say Nigeria.
Okay.
The ports
Cool.
in Nigeria, I would say yes, yes.
Okay.
But when it comes to port area waste management, that's
Yeah.
a challenge. That's a challenge. I think all of them are struggling.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
all of them are struggling.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, for your answers. Are there some things that you would like to add before we finish our discussion?
I guess that basically what I may just want to add is that we need to, the way forward is to help our ports to build a strong cooperation and collaboration to work among themselves. Because if they don't do that, then the weak link in the chain becomes the access point for pollution to be dumped in our continent.
But
And I go back to this. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, but don't you think if they are not too willing to work together, it's not because they are competitors?
They are willing to work together. They are competitors, but
Yeah.
we don't have to make environment a competitive issue because they can compete in business, in cargo trade, in port. But for environment, we should create a level platform. Because
Yeah, but
if we create competition in environment, then it will go down to the lowest possible that they can do.
yeah, but
So,
if they think that they are the best at the environmental level, people will they will get more ships than another port.
exactly so, yeah, exactly. So that's what we want to push. We want to push, so we call it a co-petition, not competition, but co-petition. Yeah.
Okay.
So that they compete, and they cooperate in the cooperation, in the competition. Yes.
Okay.
So in that way, so that they have the standards that they have to all go by, and then others can do better than that standard. So that the threshold is still good and not necessarily good. So they are willing to cooperate, but we have to get it strengthened, and that's what I mean. This cooperation will have to be strengthened, and then for them to understand that they cannot ignore environment in the scheme of things and only look at profits. Because if they ignore environment today and there is dumping and pollution, the money they make today will have to be used to clean up that pollution tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Okay.
So the best thing is to prevent it. And so that's the way we approach it with them, for them to know that prevention is cheaper.
We lost again Dr. Barnes, but I think we are at the end of our discussion. It was the last question he was answering. We wait a little bit, but I think we lost him totally. So thank you very much, dear viewers, for being with us for this discussion on African port and environmental and environment nexus. See you next time for another edition of Maritime Africa Live.